Welcome back to the deep dive. If you've been on this journey with us, you know we are deep in the woods, so to speak, charting the emotional and philosophical architecture of Oliver's upcoming album, A Dawn in the Earth.
Which is, it's shaping up to be this absolutely monumental project, slated for 2026, right around his 50th birthday.
Exactly. And we've established it's not just another album. It's, well, you called it a 30-year moral audit, a reckoning.
It really is. It's this brutal self-assessment that puts the raw, self-inflicted chaos of the 90s, that whole City of Death era.
Right, the Hey Johnny nihilism.
He puts that right up against the grounded, hard-won stability he's found now in 2025. Anchored, of course, by his family, his wife Dragana and his daughter Marina.
And in our last couple of deep dives, we really focused on that internal war. I mean, that brutal, decades-long fight against his own self-destruction.
Yeah, the necessity of putting chains on my soul, as he put it, just to survive. That relentless trudge.
But today, we're making a sharp pivot, a really sharp one. We're moving away from the internal ghost that Oliver spent 30 years fighting, and instead, we're confronting a profound, specific external trauma.
A tragedy.
A tragedy that just cuts right through all that carefully constructed piece he's built.
So our mission today, really, is to get into the new 2025 composition Hey Brother, song for Miralem. It's slated to appear right in the middle of this retrospective.
And it's explicitly identified right there in the liner notes as a dedication for a friend that died too young.
Yeah. So we need to figure out how Oliver, the mature artist, the stable man, handles this. This raw, specific grief, a loss that was completely outside of his control. How does that fit within the album's whole philosophy of fighting for life and legacy?
That's the question, isn't it? What happens to a man whose entire survival is built on the belief that fighting, that enduring, that striving, that all of that earns you a safe haven? What happens when the universe just steps in and randomly takes someone who was, by all accounts, winning that fight?
Let's start with that placement. The placement and the timing of Hey Brother.
Right. Because this is not some old track he dug out of the archives. This is brand new, a 2025 composition.
Written by the stable, mature Oliver. This is the artist who has, at least in theory, won the war against his internal demons. He's actively building a legacy. And yet, he dedicates this prime real estate on a massive album to this one deeply personal loss.
That placement it has to be critical.
Oh, it's absolutely critical. Think about it. If this song had been written in, say, 1998, it would have been drenched in nihilism.
No, completely. It would have been another reason to just give up.
A justification for it.
Yeah.
But the fact that it's a 2025 track means we're analyzing mature grief. This is coming from what we're calling his dawn period.
And we also need to understand, and this is key, that the grief isn't fresh. It's not a raw wound. The loss happened because of COVID.
Right. Which means it was roughly 5 years before he wrote this. So around 2020, maybe early 2021, given the 2026 release date for the album.
And that distinction, that space between the acute shock and this sustained shadow that is so incredibly important for you to grasp.
It is. He isn't processing the initial blow here. He's dealing with the long shadow of absence.
He's reflecting on a deep, significant grief that has had half a decade to be processed, to be analyzed, and to be integrated into his now stable reality.
It's the difference between a raw wound and a deeply set scar.
And the scar can be more complicated, can't it?
Well, yeah. The scar is often more philosophically challenging than the wound. The acute grief of 2020 to 21 was probably just overwhelming shock, numbness.
But the grief he's writing about in 2025, that's different.
That's the quiet persistence of pain, the pain that exists even after you've achieved stability. It shows us that his stability isn't a state of immunity or some kind of emotional invincibility.
It's more like a framework.
Exactly. A framework that lets him contain that enduring pain without collapsing back into the chaos of his past.
And you have to think about what he forced himself to believe to survive all that. He chose the painful effort of life over the simple relief of nihilism.
The relentless trudge he talks about in You're My Home.
He imposed order on a chaotic self. But here, with Miralem's passing, the world just violently and randomly injects chaos right back into the system, but from the outside.
And that immediately introduces this shock of unfairness. The lyrics just convey this brutal abruptness. He says so starkly, just like that you were gone from this life.
The phrasing. It's like a punch. There's no warning, no process.
It wasn't a natural fading, it was a severance. And the narrator's emotional response, it isn't acceptance, it's outrage.
Yeah, that's the word, outrage. Crystallizing that statement, no, it wasn't fair, no, it wasn't right.
And that sense of injustice, it wasn't fair. It contrasts so violently with the philosophical certainty he's worked so hard to build right.
Mm. His entire new body of work, the foundation of this Dawn album, it's all based on taking responsibility, on accepting the difficulty of life and fighting relentlessly.
He learned that if you work hard, you survive, you build something.
But Miralem's death, taken by this massive, impersonal, external force, like a global pandemic, it just violently undercuts that whole idea that your effort guarantees your survival.
It challenges the very structure of his belief system. Oliver's philosophy holds that your agency matters. Your choices determine your fate.
But Miralem, his friend who is successful and striving, he was taken by something completely beyond choice, beyond preparation.
It forces Oliver to confront this devastating reality that you can fight, you can win, and the chaotic universe can still just arbitrarily decide your end.
This is the core intellectual crisis of the song, I think. When you've built your whole moral code around the necessity of this fight mandate, a lesson you learned so brutally from the failure of, your fictional peer, Johnny.
Right.
What do you do when the person you're mourning, Miralem, clearly succeeded in that fight? He lived his life fully, and he was still taken.
The unfairness isn't just about losing a friend. It becomes an existential threat to his hard-won stability.
It threatens to reintroduce the very nihilism he spent decades defeating. Because if the universe is arbitrary, then what was it all for?
All the struggles, all the self-imposed chains, all that relentless trudging, it could all be meaningless. This song is the test. It's the test of whether his stability is robust enough to absorb this profound, unearned injustice without dissolving.
And the persistence of the pain confirms that this struggle, this philosophical reconciliation, it's still active. It's not just historical. He grounds the grief in that specific timeline. 5 years have passed, but I still dream of you at night.
What an incredibly intimate detail that is.
It is.
That detail acts like a fault line in his stability. It shows the long shadow this loss casts over his whole Dawn period. I mean, here he is, celebrating legacy, building a future for his wife and daughter.
Yeah.
Yet the memory of Miralem remains active, intrusive, manifesting in his subconscious.
In his dreams, where his defenses are down.
And the fact that the dream continues 5 years later means Miralem isn't just a treasured memory, he's an active, painful presence.
We spent so much time on memory in his earlier work, didn't we? Especially on A Night on the Earth.
We did. In a track like Yes, I Know, memory was a prison. It was past hurts, betrayal, something he wanted to eradicate but couldn't.
Then in one of the new tracks, Lone and Simple Life, he redefines memory. It becomes a treasure, valuable lessons learned from enduring the struggle.
So we have to ask, where does the dream of Miralem fit into this spectrum?
Is it a treasure that tortures him? Or is it a new kind of prison, one defined by absence?
I think in Hey Brother, memory's just profoundly complex. The dreams are agonizing because they remind him of the void, of what's gone, but they also keep Miralem actively present. They reaffirm the profound human value of their connection. It's a treasure of shared history, but one that still carries this sharp, persistent pain of being cut short by an indifferent world.
So the dream is the ultimate manifestation of the bond. It transcends physical reality.
It proves Miralem remains an intrinsic, if painful, part of Oliver's current reality.
It's the difference, I guess, between remembering a painful mistake you made and remembering a perfect gift that was suddenly shattered.
The pain is sustained by the beauty of what was lost.
And that leads us perfectly into analyzing what exactly was lost, the chronicle of their shared life.
The song dedicates the first 2 stanzas entirely to painting this picture of their shared youth.
And the imagery he uses is so deliberately simple, so authentic. It's this sharp contrast to the chaos and cynicism we associate with his younger self, especially that 90s material.
The initial lyrics establish a time of profound innocence, pure, uncomplicated connection. Hey, brother, fields were green and the blues were young.
Okay, fields were green, that's classic pastoral imagery, growth, vitality, but that other part. The blues were young. Tell me more about that. What does that signify in Oliver's established musical vocabulary?
Well, in Oliver's world, the blues, with a capital B, they're the sound of his struggle. They are the weary weight of despair, the heavy sound of his battle against surrender. They are the musical landscape of A Night on the Earth.
So when he says the blues were young,
it suggests a time before that weary, self-destructive darkness took hold. A time when sadness or difficulty was fleeting, not defining.
it's the golden era before the moral audit even began.
Exactly. and they actively protected this pure golden space. They ignored the noise. We ignored all the fights and the songs that were sung.
That's a beautiful image of selective engagement. They were just prioritizing their connection over all the external conflict, the betrayal, the transactional nature of the music scene that would eventually, consume him.
It stands in stark opposition to the paranoia that fueled earlier tracks like Life and Lies, where he was constantly looking over his shoulder.
Right.
Here, the focus was entirely internal to their bond. They were busy going on adventures kids should have, finding satisfaction in the most basic forms of shared existence. The simplicity is the entire point. They were walking, talking, and just moving lives ahead.
That phrase, moving lives ahead, that shared, uncomplicated forward momentum, it's such a contrast to the younger, chaotic narrator who was always stuck.
Always stuck. Stuck waiting 6 months for a break and laughing in the rain, or lost 3 million miles west of nothing.
Exactly. So Miralem represents a past where life actually moved ahead naturally, without the crippling self-sabotage that defined Oliver's 90s existence.
This past life is the ideal of pure connection that he spent decades trying to recapture. The second stanza reinforces their shared values, explicitly emphasizing authenticity and internal satisfaction over any external measures of success.
Yeah, you can hear it in the lines. We weren't as big with numbers, it's what we liked.
Hmm.
That's a direct swipe at the industry, isn't it? Oliver's a man who knows all about success and numbers now, but he's validating Miralem's memory by saying their value system was built on something much more foundational than fame or fortune.
Absolutely. Their satisfaction came from the simple shared existence, walking down the street and talking about our lives. The contentment was in the simplicity, in the relationship.
So this establishes Miralem not just as a friend, but as an anchor to this genuine pre-chaos connection. He represents the kind of pure human value that Oliver had to fight tooth and nail and nearly destroy himself to learn how to value later in life.
Which makes that connection foundational.
Yeah.
This friendship wasn't transactional, not like the desperate relationships he grappled with on A Night on the Earth, where he was essentially asking how to buy love.
Or demanding validation. Here, the value was just inherent. It wasn't earned through struggle or purchased with success. It was just there.
Which sets the stage for the dramatic pivot in the third stanza.
Right. We move from their shared, simple past to celebrating Miralem's individual achievements. Oliver elevates his friend's life into this beacon of victory against life's difficulties. He makes him an exemplary figure.
And the imagery is huge.
Yeah.
He walked through the desert and climbed a mountaintop.
Yeah, these aren't casual achievements. These are metaphors for immense personal effort, overcoming hardship, achieving difficult, clearly defined goals. This wasn't just a regular person. This was a paragon of perseverance.
And that's what makes the contrast with Oliver so pointed. Oliver was fighting the war inside. Miralem was fighting the war outside.
That's a great way to put it.
He was walking through the desert of real-world struggle, climbing the mountaintop of professional and personal aspiration. And he was succeeding. He made your wishes true and lived the life you've got.
So Miralem is explicitly presented as someone who fully embraced the fight of life and achieved his goals. He successfully resisted the kind of surrender that claimed Johnny.
And crucially, Oliver acknowledges the impact Miralem had on him. You kept reminding us what is possible in life.
So Miralem was a living, breathing, functional example of persistence and possibility. He validated the very idea that you can endure the hard trudge and come out victorious.
Which is why his sudden loss is so narratively devastating. The exemplar of the fight was taken.
This creates the profound paradox that underpins the entire song. And it leads us right to that transition line, that moment where he realizes the cruel irony of his own survival.
You were the one that should have kept on the fight.
The shock is just palpable in that line. Oliver, the one who barely crawled out of the nihilistic pit of the 90s, the one who constantly battled the temptation to surrender, he's the one who survives.
And Miralem, the one who demonstrated internal strength and external success, was stopped.
This phrasing, it directly reinforces the moral core of the whole album, doesn't it? The absolute necessity of fighting.
It does. We've analyzed the 1995 demo, Hey Johnny, where the mandate was, hey Johnny, you should have kept on fighting. That older song showed the fatal consequence of surrender. Doping, isolation, death. That was the punishment for giving up the internal struggle.
But Hey Brother introduces a new, terrifying variable to this philosophy. Miralem didn't surrender internally. She lived the life you've got. He didn't fail the moral audit.
The external force, the pandemic, stopped his fight. Not moral failure. This is a massive shift. The album is moving the goalposts of the fight.
The focus shifts dramatically from moral failure, like Johnny's choice to quit, to tragic, systemic unfairness.
Miralem's fate, dictated by a random external disease. This forces Oliver the survivor to confront the sheer fragility of the stability he built. He's realized that even those who fight and win externally, those who are strong and successful, can be taken by random forces.
This is the new, profound test for the man who thought he finally had the universe figured out.
And now the narrative takes this deeply intimate and, to be honest, psychologically complicated turn in the fourth stanza.
It really does. He's lamenting the external unfairness of the universe, but then he immediately personalizes the fault. He internalizes the whole tragedy in this moment of profound self-blame.
And this is where the emotional mechanism of the song becomes a window into the psyche of the narrator, the survivor. The line is incredibly sharp and specific. I won't forgive myself for refusing that last walk.
Think about the scale of that. A global pandemic that killed millions. And Oliver distills this massive abstract tragedy onto a tiny personal point of failure. A single refused invitation. A walk he should have taken.
But why? Why this intense need to internalize the fault? Why reduce this massive, incomprehensible, abstract loss to a concrete, manageable piece of personal guilt?
Because the mind desperately craves agency, especially when you're facing absolute chaos. Abstract loss is overwhelming. It's nihilistic. It suggests the universe is truly random and uncaring.
Right. So in extreme grief, the survivor often seeks out a personal action they could have changed. It turns the abstract loss into concrete guilt, which is, strangely, more manageable.
So if he can blame himself for refusing that walk, if he can construct a narrative where his choice was the variable that mattered, then the event feels less random, less nihilistic.
Exactly. It implies, however falsely, that his action could have changed the outcome. It's a desperate psychological move to regain some control over a universe that just proved itself to be devastatingly chaotic and arbitrary.
And Oliver's whole mature philosophy is built on agency, on responsibility, on control. So when that foundation is shaken by Miralem's random death, he instinctually reaches for the nearest personal mistake to reassert some kind of narrative control.
Even if that mistake is a source of crippling guilt.
The intensity of the phrasing, "I won't forgive myself," it underscores how deeply this personal guilt has burrowed into his consciousness. It's been sustained over those 5 years.
It demonstrates that even the mature, stable Oliver isn't immune to the self-flagellation and obsession with personal failure that plagued his younger self.
But the source of the flagellation is different.
Completely. Before, it was for self-sabotage. Now it's for an external tragedy.
This psychological crisis is precisely what tests the structural integrity of his dawn period. If Miralem died randomly, then Oliver's survival is also random, which is a terrifying thought for him.
But if he can create a link, however tenuous,
Yeah.
between his action, missing the walk, and the outcome, Miralem's death, then the world remains somewhat ordered. Oliver still retains agency, even if that agency manifests as guilt.
The guilt is terrible, but the alternative, total cosmic randomness, is existentially destructive to the man who fought so hard for an ordered life.
So let's connect this powerful sense of loss and guilt back to the overarching philosophy of the album. We keep returning to the fight mandate. How does Miralem's tragedy change what Oliver believes about fighting?
The core comparison rests between those two archetypes, right? Johnny and Miralem.
Johnny represented the ultimate moral failure, the internal surrender. Oliver's lesson there was clear. Keep fighting against the chaos inside, or you will die.
And his current existence is defined by that hard-won mandate. Keep fighting, as we see in Fight for a Dawn to Break.
But now we introduce Miralem, the external tragedy. He represents functional success, vitality. Miralem didn't fail the moral test. He died because of a random external force.
Which creates the terrifying paradox. Oliver spent 20 years learning that the enemy was the ghost inside him. The solution was self-discipline, structure, commitment.
And Miralem proves that internal strength is nothing against cosmic indifference. His own survival, defined by putting chains on my soul, now seems conditional, arbitrary even when faced with Miralem's fate.
So the shift in the nature of the enemy is the central intellectual insight of, hey, brother, the fight used to be against yourself.
Now, Oliver has to accept that the enemy can just be the random universe, which respects neither effort nor virtue. The fight is no longer just about moral integrity. It's about endurance in the face of the unendurable.
And that realization is profound. His life, defined by this mandate to keep fighting, is now haunted by the fact that even those who fought successfully and won externally can be taken by forces beyond their control.
It subtly shifts the album's focus. The Dawn isn't a period of guaranteed safety. It's a period where you must keep fighting, not just against the ghost inside, but against the sheer unfair chaos outside.
So how does the song resolve this impossible tension? I mean, where does he find peace or meaning when his agency has been stripped away by fate?
The resolution arrives in the repeated chorus in the outro section, and it marks this distinct shift away from self-blame and tragedy toward honoring the friend and finding acceptance through gratitude.
The focus moves from what was lost to what was gained by the friendship.
Exactly. The repetition of the lines, "Hey brother, we will never forget you." This provides a collective anchor. It suggests he isn't mourning alone. He's linking to Miralem's family or their shared social circle.
It transitions the experience from solitary internal guilt to a shared public memory. That externalization has to be healing.
And then comes the ultimate statement of value and gratitude, reframing the pain as a privilege. "Hey brother, it was an honor to know you."
This is the mature Oliver speaking.
He accepts the devastation of the loss, but he deems the value of the friendship itself to be paramount. The agony of absence is secondary to the profound privilege of their shared existence.
He's using gratitude as a defense mechanism against nihilism, isn't he? If the world is random, focusing on the honor of the past relationship is a way to impose moral meaning back onto the universe.
It is a profound act of moral reimposition. He is choosing to define the relationship by its quality and its duration, not by its brutal ending.
And finally, the song confronts that deep uncertainty of the future.
Yeah. "Hey brother, I don't know if I'll see you again." He doesn't assert any religious certainty. He doesn't claim to know what comes next.
And he immediately follows that uncertainty with the definitive, foundational conclusion. "Hey, brother, I'm just honored that I was your friend."
And that
Ugh.
is the hallmark of his mature post-chaos stability. He processes profound loss, not through demanding guaranteed certainty or succumbing to self-pity, but through radical humility and gratitude.
He accepts the, I don't know, of the metaphysical future and focuses entirely on the concrete, undeniable I was of their past connection.
That is emotional maturity applied to mortality.
It echoes the wisdom he achieved in some of the other new compositions for the album, like Till the End of Time, where he stopped demanding a guaranteed forever in his relationships.
And instead accepted the continuous effort of doing better, grounded in present commitment.
Right. And here he applies that same mature realism to death. He doesn't know if there's a next life, but he knows the friendship was real, it was honorable, and it endures through memory.
And that acceptance, that ability to hold profound, unfair pain and still articulate gratitude, that might be the strongest evidence yet that Oliver's stability is truly hard-won. It's resilient.
It can absorb a massive external shock and refuse to collapse into the nihilism that claimed his younger self.
To synthesize the role of "Hey Brother" in the grand architecture of Dawn on the Earth, then, it is certainly not a song of nihilism or self-pity.
Which would have been the younger Oliver's predictable response, for sure.
Instead, it is a mature, complex expression of grief that fundamentally tests and ultimately solidifies the narrator's hard-won stability.
The song acts as a monument, not just to Miralem, but to the concept of true, authentic friendship itself.
It proves that even after decades of intense internal struggle, and even after finding peace with his immediate family, the pure bonds of the past remain profoundly important, even when they're painfully severed by unfair external forces.
It's an affirmation that his stability allows him to care deeply, even if caring leads to devastating pain.
And crucially, the act of composition itself is a statement of legacy. Oliver is now focused on writing songs for the future, like "Play This Song" for his daughter Marina.
So by composing and placing Hey Brother right in the middle of this retrospective, he consciously elevates Miralem's life and death. He ensures his friend is permanently part of the lasting foundation he's building.
It's an act of immortalization through art, confirming that Miralem's life served as a powerful, permanent reminder of what is possible.
But the shadow remains. The fact that Miralem was taken despite embodying possibility, despite successfully fighting the fight, that forces Oliver to confront the ultimate fragility of stability itself.
Precisely. We spent so much time establishing that Oliver learned that stability requires constant internal fighting against the chaos inside him, the Johnny archetype.
And in Hey Brother, he writes about Miralem, a friend who did everything right, who climbed the mountaintop, who achieved external success, but was still taken by an external, random, unfair force, the chaotic world.
So, If Oliver's entire structure of existence is built on the promise that he can do better and keep fighting to earn his survival, does the sudden unfair loss of Miralem suggest that true, mature stability must ultimately accept its own profound fragility?
That sometimes the enemy isn't the ghost inside you, but the random, chaotic unfairness of the world outside, which can stop anyone's fight regardless of their internal discipline.
That is the final philosophical weight of the song.
And if that randomness is the ultimate truth, then is the truest victory. Not the guarantee of forever, but simply the ability to still stand at the end of the day in the face of this immense unfair loss and say, with peace and profound honesty, it was an honor to know you.
That quiet, grounded gratitude in defiance of chaos. That may be the most profound achievement of the man who finally reached his dawn.
It suggests that the lesson learned is not about controlling the universe,
But about choosing how you respond to the moments of uncontrollable beauty and uncontrollable pain. The fight, in the end, transforms from a desperate struggle for control into a humble commitment to gratitude and memory.
a powerful and surprisingly hopeful thought to carry forward as we continue charting the emotional landscape of a dawn on the earth. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.
Keep digging.